All right, greetings everyone, and welcome to the Week 3 overview for our online college writing course. Remember, you should be listening to these on Friday as soon as the week opens so that you can prepare over the weekend a study plan for how you're going to tackle everything the following week, and also so you can make sure you're ready for class on Monday. So first, before Monday's class, you do have an assignment this week. There is an essay. It's in the before and after class documents in the Week 3 Start Here folder. I want you to read an essay by Anne Green. It's called My Uncle's Guns. It is her attempt at writing a personal narrative, but she does something really interesting in the essay that I want you to see and I want you to think about. And we will talk about it in class on Monday. So please make sure that you've read it. It's not hugely important that you print it. It's more important that you've read it and done some thinking about it. Please have it available because we will talk about it in class. So if that means it's just on like a tab up in your computer, that is fine, but just have it accessible. Okay, so then also in the before and after class folder for Week 3, I want to tell you a little bit about what else is there. I've given you annotated copies of all of the mentor texts from last week. So my annotated copies of School Days, The Physics of Forbidden Love, White Food, and Good Daughter. But I've also given you videos. The two videos that I've given you for School Days and then The Physics of Forbidden Love are my discussion of those texts, and it's what I would have told you if we had been in a face-to-face setting. This is how I would have gone over this essay, so it's probably a good idea to give them a listen and make sure that you're learning what you should be learning from these essays. Let me know what you think and if they're helpful, and then I can certainly add more if you're finding them helpful. Okay. This week you're going to listen to episode 3 of Serial. It's called Leakin Park. A lot of students really like this episode. Lots of curiosity quests come from this episode. I hope you enjoy it. One of the things we'll talk about this week, and you'll see it in your assignments, is just breaking an episode down into acts. Remember, when we think about that, we think about putting it on like in a play. What's Act 1? What's Act 2? What's Act 3? This week, for episode 3, the acts go as follows. First, you get introduced to Detectives Ritz and McGillivray. Those are the two detectives that were in charge of Adnan's case, or I guess Hayes' case at this point. They begin then the episode by giving you the investigation on who the suspects were. They talk a little bit about Leakin Park, give you some background knowledge on it. Then Mr. S, his story, because he's the one that found Hayes' body, so it's kind of them talking to him about the circumstances surrounding that, which are very strange and only get stranger as the episode goes on. Then you get this idea that the body was so hard to find. They couldn't even find it. Even the people that knew where it was were almost standing on her. They didn't even know that the body was there. And these were the investigators and the medical examiner that came out to exhume the body. And so those are people, they couldn't even find it. That's how hard it was, which just makes Mr. S's story seem even more strange, which is what they talk about next. And then Sarah actually goes to Leakin Park to see the site where the body was and kind of think about the plausibility of Mr. S's story. You get some information about the evidence, the things that were found around the body, the liquor bottle, and then you get the story about Mr. S. And I'm going to kind of leave that there because you'll hear about that in the episode, and then Sarah's final conclusion. So this is how I would have broken down episode 3. So as you listen, just make sure you're paying attention to those breaks. Again, this is helpful for as you go into drawing the acts of your narrative, which is one of your assignments this week. If you just get used to thinking of things in their major support or in their acts, it'll really be helpful for you as you go about applying this to your narrative. We're going to do lots of learning this week for our personal narrative. We go over most of the skills that you're going to be graded on, so it's important you pay attention this week. There's also lots of opportunity to practice this week. So the first thing you're going to do in the idea of the acts, you're actually going to sketch your acts for your personal narrative. Remember, we did the 3 Little Pigs and the voice read last week. Well, you're going to use that knowledge. You're going to draw some note cards out for your own personal narrative, and you're going to play with time and tell me how it went. Then you're going to learn a lot about description this week, how we name, we detail, and we compare things in order to add sensory detail to our writing. There is a video here. So when you look at the list of handouts, first, this description for the personal narrative is the handout that I hand out in my face-to-face class. And so it's important that you read this first and then you listen to the lecture that I would have given in a face-to-face class that's here in this video. The PowerPoint, remember, just goes with the video. That way, if you need to refer back to something, you don't have to listen to the whole video to see one of the slides. You can just have access to the PowerPoint also. If you need more help, there's a TED Ed video on descriptive writing. You may or may not need this link at all, depending on how you're feeling. And then there's an essay you'll read this week. It's called Father. It's by Jan Gray. You'll read this. It's an essay, personal narrative that uses a lot of description, and so you'll read that. And then there's a chance for you to do the interviewing a place assignment, which is on this description for the personal narrative. It's actually the last page of this handout, and it's been modified for our online class. It's a 7-minute writing, so make sure that you have fun with that, and also know that, when we say 7 minutes, really set your timer and make sure that you're doing your writing in those time constraints, if only because there's so much going on this week. It's important that you can get to all of it, and so limiting your time in these 7 minutes writings is probably important. You could always go back and add to it later if you have more time towards the end of the week. Next, I'm going to introduce a revision strategy called satellite writing. Satellite writing is where you have your main story here, but then you think of all these small moments that you can write about, and then picture a camera. You would zoom out of your personal narrative and zoom into this small moment and just write all about that moment. You kind of freeze in on that one moment. Or if you remember, you want to write a description. Let's say you're writing about your mother and you want to capture the way your mother looked at you at a certain moment. Maybe you're going to spend 7 minutes and only write about how she looked. Or maybe you want to zoom in on a conversation between your mother and yourself, and that you just want to recreate that conversation. So you're going to spend 7 minutes writing, just creating that conversation. So satellite writing allows you to zoom in to certain parts of your narrative that need more development. So there's a video that teaches you about that. Again, here's the PowerPoint that goes with the video, and then you're going to do some satellite writing on description, and it's all detailed in that discussion topic. Again, these boards this week are all your private discussion boards. They are not public. Then you're going to do some work with dialogue. There is a voice thread that uses children's literature to teach you some things about how to add description and tone to help your dialogue. And with that, you're going to use this. It's a State Farm commercial. We'll actually use this to have you first starting to write some dialogue with description and tone. And here is that. The directions for that discussion board. There's also a video here for how to punctuate dialogue. If you don't know how to punctuate it, you need to watch the video. It is expected that you already know how to do that. So if you don't, watch the video and learn, because it is that is not something I'm directly teaching during this course. It's assumed you know how to do it. If you don't, learn it. And again, up here, this is the link to the video of the State Farm commercial. It's not in the voice thread. You'll have to go back into this folder to get to it. Then you'll turn in your State Farm commercial dialogue practice, which is here, and then you'll do some satellite writing of dialogue. You'll zoom in on a moment in your own story where you get to zoom in on a conversation and try to recreate that conversation and add the description and the tone in order to really capture the conversation. So that's what your work in dialogue. Then you're going to do some work in tense. We'll talk about tense and aspect a little bit. There's a video here that you'll watch. Here is the PowerPoint that goes with the video. Again, only refer to this if you need it. And then if you need the tense and aspect chart, you might need it. There's a link to the Indiana University of Pennsylvania's Writing Center, which goes over some of the tense things that you're going to learn in this video. And then there's a satellite writing on tense. Now, some students in this case choose to try the beginning of their personal narrative in a different tense. So let's say you wrote your personal narrative in past tense. They play a little bit and start writing it in present tense just to see how it feels. Or they work on making sure they're going forward and backward in time and working on those transitions. So zoom in on a part of your narrative that needs help with the tense, and that is what you'll use for your 7-minute writing practicing tense. Then you have one mentor text discussion board this week. Because you're doing so much satellite writing and working in description and dialogue and tense, there's only one mentor text discussion board this week. There's 2 essays, Salvation and My First Love Story, and then there's a discussion board for you to examine those essays. That's all for week 3. Don't forget, you should be looking at your initial feedback on the personal narrative brain dump. Make sure you're using my feedback to inform your next draft. If you're working on draft 2, I would say actually pause, work on your satellite writing this week, and then start working on draft 2 of your personal narrative. It's due next week. It's due with a cover letter that explains all of your changes. Dear Jan, this is what I changed. Here's why. What do you think? If you want to do it in the style of Anne Green, I think that would be fantastic. That's why we're reading her essay. And then, of course, please let me know if you have any questions. I'll see you in Zoom on Monday, where we'll go over a lot of these things again, and we'll also go over the Anne Green essay, and we'll do some sentence carpentry as well. So I look forward to seeing you then. Let me know if you have any questions before that, and have a great weekend.